Hi, my name is Megan, and today we're going to be talking about food storage. Here at Country Life Natural Foods, we are big on buying food in bulk because over time it can save you a lot of money. That said, if your food goes bad before you're able to use it, you're losing money. So today we're going to talk about how to properly store your bulk food so that you can ensure you get the most use out of it. Now, if you have purchased a bulk item from us and received it in the mail within the past 6 months to a year or so, you should have received a card that looks like this that talks about how, hey, we try to pack them as well as we can. But the back has food storage tips. This is a very Sparks Notes version of things you need to know to properly store your food. So today I'm going to expand on everything here, kind of explain what the different products are that we offer for food storage, how to use them. And yeah, let's go and get into it. Okay, so when we're talking about food preservation, there are 4 main things that you want to protect your food from: light, moisture, oxygen, and pests. To accomplish all 4 of those things, we need a variety of tools. The number one thing we need is a bucket with a good lid. I have 2 different kinds of lids here, a regular lid and a Gamma Seal lid. We'll go over both of those here in a minute. A Mylar bag, oxygen absorbers, diatomaceous earth, and something to label your food with, because when it's in all this stuff, you can't look in it and see what it is. So let's go over each of those individual components. All right, let's talk about buckets. This is a 5-gallon bucket. It is a clean food grade bucket, which is going to be ideal. And with my bucket, I have 2 different kinds of lids. I have a regular lid here that just pops right on top. And then I have a Gamma Seal lid. This is really handy because it unscrews. I'm going to unscrew it backwards because it's not in the bucket right now. It unscrews into 2 pieces, and that makes it really easy to get into your buckets. If you are going for long-term food storage, 5, 10, 20 years, then a regular bucket with a gasket seal inside is going to be your best bet for keeping out the most air. If you're going for convenience, something you're going to be using regularly, a Gamma Seal lid is great because you don't have to pry the lid off every time. You can just unscrew it. It does not provide a completely airtight seal, so it's not great for long-term storage, but it is excellent for day-to-day use. So there's our 5-gallon bucket and lid options. On to the next. Next on our list, we have Mylar bags. Now, if I'm using a 5-gallon bucket, why would I need a Mylar bag? The 5-gallon bucket does a great job of blocking out light and keeping out big pests. It is not 100% airtight, and it's not 100% watertight. So that's where the Mylar bags come into play. These are watertight, they are airtight. They also help keep out light, and they'll help keep out bugs and whatnot. They won't do a great job of keeping out rodents. So that's why you don't want to just use a Mylar bag and not a 5-gallon bucket. Right now I'm holding a 1-gallon Mylar bag. Here I have a 5-gallon Mylar bag. And the really cool thing about Mylar bags is that if a 1-gallon size is too big, you can actually cut it. So this is 1 Mylar or 1-gallon bag that I cut into different bags. And then I used a hair straightener and just kind of sealed along the side. You just kind of hold it and seal it for a little bit. I mean, you probably want to hold it there for a good 10, 20 seconds to make sure you're getting a good seal. Right after you've sealed it, it is very hot, so don't touch it right away. Give it a second to cool down. But then you have a nice seal, and you can create whatever size bag you want. So that's pretty handy. So that is Mylar bags. Here are our oxygen absorbers. These are 2000 cc absorbers, so they are bigger. These are great at absorbing oxygen. Go figure. Their name is very creative. How these work is they are basically filled with iron dust, iron powder. And so when you put them in your Mylar bag, a chemical reaction occurs that absorbs all of the oxygen. and that helps keep the oxygen away from your food and breaking it down. So these have an indicator on them. This pink indicator means that they are good. Does it say, explain that on here? It says oxy eye, do not eat. Don't eat the oxygen absorber, it's not good for you. This eye will turn a different color when the oxygen absorbers are not good anymore. You'll notice they're in a vacuum sealed container. If you're not going to use all of the oxygen absorbers, you want to make sure to put them in an environment where they don't have a whole lot of oxygen to absorb, because if you just leave them out, they're going to be bad and you're not going to be able to use them anymore. So you can either reseal the bag, or you can use something like a mason jar. You want to use one that is the smallest possible size to hold as many oxygen absorbers as you have. And when you put them in there, it can only absorb the amount of oxygen that's in here, and that way you can still use them for your food preservation. So make sure to work quickly with these, and we'll go over some tips and tricks on how to make sure you are set up for success when using your oxygen absorbers. A common misconception when people use oxygen absorbers in a Mylar bag is they think it's going to make the Mylar bag look vacuum sealed because it's supposed to absorb air, right? It doesn't absorb air, it absorbs oxygen. But we breathe oxygen. Yes, we do. Most of the air that we breathe is actually composed of nitrogen. Oxygen only makes up about 20% of the air that we breathe. So when you put an oxygen absorber in a Mylar bag, it will absorb 20% of the air content, but it will not absorb all of the air content. So if your Mylar bag does not look vacuum sealed, that does not mean that your oxygen absorber is not working. It just means that you left more air in there than you thought. As you are packing your Mylar bags, you want to make sure to squeeze out as much air as possible so that there is as little oxygen as possible in there to be sucked out initially. But if your oxygen absorber, or if your Mylar bag has an oxygen absorber in it and does not look vacuum sealed, that doesn't mean it's not doing its job. It just means that there's still 80% of the air in there that you initially left in there. Next on our list, we have diatomaceous earth. Now, there are kind of two disparate camps when it comes to diatomaceous earth. Some people say, absolutely, use it. Some people say, no, it's dangerous, don't use it. I'm going to tell you some facts about diatomaceous earth and then tell you my opinion about it. Please note that my presentation of the facts is going to represent a bias. Disclaimers aside, diatomaceous earth are the fossilized remains of a algae. It's mostly silica-based, and it kind of forms deposits that can then be mined. It is a very sharp, when you're touching it, like when you're holding it, it doesn't feel sharp, but at a microscopic level, it is sharp and barbed. And so what it does to pests specifically is it kind of creeps in under the exoskeleton and cuts their underbelly. And then it's also a desiccant, which means that it absorbs moisture. So it kind of cuts the bug and then kind of sucks the moisture out of the bug and kills it. So it's great for pest control. It is silica based. If you inhale too much silica, that can be bad for your lungs. So here's where we get to my opinion on it. I don't think it's a problem to use diatomaceous earth. It can be a lung irritant. It can be an eye irritant. It can be a skin irritant. So can sand. If you get sand in your eye, it doesn't feel good. If you rub sand on your arm, it doesn't feel good. If you breathe in too much sand, it's going to mess up your lungs. So that's kind of how my brain equates the two together. I've heard of people actually taking diatomaceous earth as a supplement. So personally, I would use it in my pest control. If you do not want to use diatomaceous earth, which is 100% your prerogative, especially when you're storing things like wheat berries that are prone to pantry moths, I would highly recommend freezing your wheat berries for up to a week to make sure to kill any sort of bug or larvae that are in the wheat berries. What? There are bugs in my wheat berries? This is a completely natural product that comes from the food, goes through minimal processing before it comes to us. So yes, there is a chance that there are going to be some pantry moths in there because it is a natural product. We could treat it with chemicals and whatnot to get rid of the pantry moths, or we can tell you to freeze your wheat berries or use diatomaceous earth. So if you can freeze your food products before storing it, the diatomaceous earth is probably extraneous, not extraneous. Overkill? It's not overkill. Probably unnecessary. If you cannot freeze your products before packaging it, I would highly recommend at least using diatomaceous earth on the outside of your Mylar bags, because that will at least prevent things from getting in. And then hopefully with the oxygen absorbers, it will absorb any oxygen those bugs would need to breathe. Personally, for my use, I would use diatomaceous earth I'm not worried about ingesting small bits of it. My opinion, you make your decision. That is 100% up to you. Diatomaceous earth. So when you're using diatomaceous earth, you really don't need to use that much of it. An average 5-gallon bucket will hold somewhere between 20 and 30 pounds of food. It definitely depends on the density of your food. When you're using the diatomaceous earth at the high end, you would need to use about a half pound. You can definitely get away with less than that. So what I would do is when I open my Mylar bag, if you're putting it in the Mylar bag, sprinkle a little dusting at the bottom, pour in some of your food product, dust a little bit more food product, dust in a little bit more, and then kind of shake it up so it's all distributed. And then you're good to go. So pretty easy. Okay, so now that we've talked about our different materials, let's go ahead and assemble a bucket. Okay, so as you can see, we have kind of spread things out a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and prepare some buckets. I have a couple extra tools in my arsenal right now. First is this easy bucket opener. This can be used to open it, but then this can also be used to hammer on the lids. And then the other thing I have ready to go is a hair straightener that is heated up. I'm going to use that to seal the Mylar bags. So those two things are ready to go. I am going to make sure to prep all of my buckets before I open the oxygen absorbers. I have 4 buckets here, and I'm also going to do a little 1-gallon thing here. I put together a chart that we will either link to or show here of how many cc's of oxygen absorbers you need per thing. Basically, I have 10 oxygen absorbers here. I'm going to put 2 in each 5-gallon bucket. I'm going to put 1 in my 1-gallon bucket, and then I'll have 1 extra that I will put in this mason jar. This is way too big a mason jar for 1 oxygen absorber, but it's what we're working with today. So let's go ahead and start assembling. I am going to start over here with our cute little bucket because that is the easiest to show you. So I have my 1-gallon Mylar bag. I'm going to open this. Open says me. Obviously you want clean hands for this. This has a gusset on the bottom. I'm going to make sure to open that and put it right in here. And then I'm going to get my diatomaceous earth, which I left over here. Got my handy dandy box opener. Don't walk with open knives, kids. Open that. You can see how dusty this is. Now that we have this open, I can actually show you what this looks like. It's so weird to me that this is barbed because as I'm holding it, it feels really soft. Like, have you ever felt a soft powder? I'm going to use not even this much for the whole thing. So I'm going to put a little bit on my lid here and just take a little sprinkling and just sprinkle it on the bottom there and then powdery hands. Yay. Okay, and then here I have some split red lentils I'm going to be putting in here. This is just under 5 pounds. We're gonna open that up and pour. This is small enough, it's gonna be easy to shake, so I'll probably just go ahead and pour all of it in. All of that in, I'm gonna put, oh, look, here's my diatomaceous earth right here. Remember, Megan? Yep. Dump that in. Shake it, shake, shake it. Start up a little bit. And that is all I'm going to do on that one for now because I don't want to open my oxygen absorbers until I'm ready to go with everything else. But basically, oxygen absorber, seal, lid, bang, 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 and we're done. So that's the general process. Now let's do the other buckets. I'm just going to do this. I'm not going to talk through it. So here we go. Okay, before I disappear and stop talking, I forgot to tell you about these gamma lids. So I'm using two different kinds of lids here. I'm using a regular lid and a gamma seal lid. The reason for that is I want one to be sealed and ready to go for a while, and I want one to be easier access that I can use. This is a really good system to use, to have one more prepared and one easier to get to, and then you can rotate them. And that way, by rotating things, you know they're always staying fresh. So that's a good way to do it. So for the gamma lids, I'm going to go ahead and unscrew this part of it and attach it. And usually you can kind of snap these on. This one is being extra stubborn. Oh, there it goes. Just kind of work my way around. But if you want to save your hands, then you can also use something like this. Once this is on, it is on. This is not coming off. I'm going to give it an extra little tap just to make sure. So now this should not spin. If this is spinning, it's not on properly. And that way, when I screw this on, it should. Yeah, that's tight. That's not going anywhere. So make sure your gamma lids are properly attached. Make sure. Come on, Megan. You're better than that. As I'm doing this, I want to make sure that the Mylar bag goes all the way to the corners in the bottom, so I've made sure to flatten it out nicely down there. The fewer crinkles you have, the less susceptible your Mylar bag is to breaking down over time. So the fewer wrinkles, the better. It's not completely avoidable, but just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. After I have mixed some diatomaceous earth in, I'm going to make sure to leave a light sprinkling just on the very top to try to extra deter pests. And then I'm going to start getting some of the air out of this, but I will do more right when I do the oxygen absorbers. Right now, because these have a zipper, it's really nice. I can just make sure to leave a little opening, and that just speeds things up when I go to use my heat seal mechanism. If you don't have a hair straightener, you can also use like just a clothes iron with a 2x4 or something flat. Okay, now is the time where I have to act a little bit fast with these oxygen absorbers. So, are you ready to race? Here we go. This is overkill for this little bucket, but we're going with it. On this first pass, I'm just going to do a rough seal, and then I will come back afterwards and make sure it's a really thorough seal. Theoretically, I zipped this before I put the oxygen absorbers in. It would have been even better if I had sealed these until the very corner before putting them in, but we will still be fine time-wise. I've heard that you have about 15 minutes of working time with oxygen absorbers, and we are going to be well within that, so not too worried, just do as I say, not as I do. The other thing I'm doing here is I'm sealing it as close to the top as I can. That way, if you want to cut under your seal, you still have room to come back through and reseal. You can even do that under the zipper if you wanted to. The zipper reseal closure is a really nice feature to have, but if you want to reseal under that, you can totally do that. Usually if I'm going through the work of putting an oxygen absorber in here and sealing it, I would not be using a Gamma Seal lid. I would recommend using a Mylar bag even if you're using a Gamma Seal lid, just because it's an extra layer of protection. But if it's something that you're going to be getting into regularly and using, then an oxygen absorber isn't really going to do you a whole lot of good, because it'll absorb oxygen until you open it, and then more oxygen gets in. So if this is something that's going to be like your working stock, probably don't use oxygen absorbers. Remember, this is foil and plastic that is getting hot, so don't touch it right away. It will burn you. And now that is my initial seal and all of these done, I'm just going to double check that I did a good job. So like right here, I can see on my first pass through, there's a little uppity right here where I didn't quite get. So that specifically is what I'm looking for here, is making sure there's a nice, even, consistent seal. The reason sealing them like this works is because a Mylar bag is essentially a layer of foil that's between two layers of plastics. So the foil is what helps keep out the light, and it also helps keep out some of the extra air when it's laminated between those bits of plastic. So I don't know if you can see right here, the seal is pretty narrow. I would like it to look more like this. So you can see right here, it's just not quite where I want it to be. And that, again, is a personal opinion preference thing. You will find what works best for you and go with what works best for you. The goal here is to provide information and educate, but then it is your job to go and verify information and make sure that, I mean, I'm telling you what I know, but I could always be wrong. So if there's something that you've seen me do here and you think there's a better way to do it, please let us know. Let's start a discussion down in the comments. Let's make it a place where we can all learn something. If you have any questions about the process, I know that there are holes in what I've told you here today, so leave your questions down in the comments too. We would love to do a follow-up video. And if you have some recommendations that I can learn from, please share. We're all here to learn together. Now that I am looking at these 4 buckets, if these get swapped around, I have no idea knowing what is in what bucket. So I'm going to make sure to label all of my buckets. I'm going to label both my lid and bucket. That way I can look at it from a couple different directions and know what I am looking for. I'm using some tape and a Sharpie to do this. If you want to write directly on the bucket, that is your prerogative. So I have done 2 buckets of Prairie Gold, which is a hard white wheat, and I have done 2 buckets of hard red winter wheat. So those are going to be the 4 labels, or I make are 2 of each. I'm going to make sure I have a gamma seal of each and a regular lid of each. And I'm also going to put today's date. Okay, so we have our buckets fully assembled and sealed. Now it is time to put on the lid. Our bucket opener has a little malady looking thing on it. I have not actually had success putting lids on with this because I hit it here and then it pops up here and I just don't love using that. So if you have access to a rubber mallet, that is my tool of choice. I'm going to do a preliminary tap around to get an initial seal, and then I can do a bang bang to get a full seal, because if I just go straight bang, then this side pops up. So tap, bang, bang. Here we go. You could see later when it starts like really rebounding, that's when it's pretty well on. Another test you can do is if you can pick up the bucket by the lid, you're probably good. So there is our Prairie Gold and our Prairie Gold and our hard red winter wheat all packed up and ready to go. Didn't take that long. It definitely takes some time, definitely takes some prep, but if that's what you're doing once a year, I don't know how much wheat berries you're going through, how many wheat berries you're going through, how much because it's quantity, but how many because it's berries. I don't know. Anywho, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said before, if you have any questions or if there's any information that I left out, please leave it down in the comments. That way we can learn together and we can maybe even do a follow-up video. Yes, thank you. Wheat berries. Yeah, if you want to get some wheat berries for yourself, make some delicious bread, go ahead and check out countrylifefoods.com. And until next time, I'll see you later.